Welcome to All Electric Conversations, where we talk with pioneers in traveling with electric vehicles. We're your hosts, Katie and Steve Krivolovic of the All Electric family. From road trips and towing to daily life, we'll hear stories of wanderlust and progress to inspire your own adventures with All Electric Conversations. Hey guys, welcome back to another All Electric Conversations. I'm Katie.
I'm Steve.
And it has been a hot minute since we have been on here to do a podcast, but what a better time to start back up with podcasts than when you want to talk about the Cybertruck.
Yeah, we want to get into specifics on the Cybertruck, whether we think that it will be good for towing, if it's a disappointment from what we had initially thought, and then hopefully some good things about it too.
Yeah, like do we think we will we pull the trigger on it when our number comes up, that kind of a thing. So initial first thoughts. What do you initially think, the ones that have come off the line so far? What's your first thought?
Initial thoughts are I kind of assumed that it would be one of two things. There would be a 500 plus mile range vehicle that would cost 120,000 plus, or they would reduce the battery pack and make it a lower range vehicle than what they had talked about, so they could keep the price down. That's was my initial thought. I mean, it's still Cybertruck, still pretty crazy looking, and there's a lot of cool features about it. There are some positive things too that we didn't know about with the vehicle, and so that's going to be real exciting to see how well that works.
Yeah.
How about you?
For me, I think I am a little underwhelmed by it. Maybe I thought maybe I'd be a little bit more impressed with it when it came to reality, when we started seeing them. But I do think that there still are some good things about it. But I mean, I think most people, if they've been following us at all, know that it was going to have to be something special to make me like it more than the Rivian. Because I have always been, since day one, since we got the Rivian, been a big fan of the Rivian. And so we'll get into it tomorrow to see how it falls in that space for me, but probably not as impressed as I was hoping I was going to be by it.
For what reasons?
Probably towing capacity and range. Like those are probably and payload, like kind of the three big things, because especially for a truck, for us, we use our EVs for towing, and so I want those numbers to be high. And, the camper that we're towing right now, as far as with the Rivians, it's kind of the top of their capabilities of what they can do. Not so much the weight wise for the R1T. It is at the top of the R1S, but the Cybertruck is not a SUV, so I'm going to try not to talk about the R1S too much. But payload capacity wise, our camper is sitting pretty high on payload capacity for the R1T. So to have the Cybertruck with what they originally were estimating was going to be at over 3,000 pounds of payload capacity, I mean, that's a heavy duty truck at that point. So I think that was one of the things that I was looking forward to, is to be like, all right, we have a so to speak heavy duty truck that is an electric truck. And then it was really originally supposed to tow 14,000 pounds, and now it's 11,000 pounds. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me. I really wanted those numbers, and then the range. I mean, if at 500 miles of range, you're talking like almost worst case scenario, you're going to get 250 miles of towing range on that vehicle. We would have never made it to where we were worried that we were going to run out of range before we needed to stop. I mean, there's no way with our family of 5. We have become accustomed to stopping more often, and we actually like doing it that way. But it is nice if you're in an area where there's not a lot of charging to know that you have that extra range. And now we're down to, again, it's down by what the R1T has to offer. So I think those are the things for me. So, like, what do you think?
I do agree with the range part of that. I was disappointed in the range for sure, because it would have been nice to have 200 to 250 miles of usable range while towing our camper. It would have been very similar to the Hummer, but with the Hummer, you were on the public charging, so you would have had access to the Tesla network, which still does have its issues with the charge port in the rear. So there still are some potential of unhooking. But if you have that much range, you can work around that. You could potentially skip chargers, go to a charger that has a higher probability of being able to just pull in and not unhook. So it would have been great. Now, with the 300 miles of range, what is it, 340? Is that what it says?
Yeah, I believe it was 340.
So, like, with that being said, that's Tesla range. I know people aren't going to like me saying that, but that's Tesla range that is probably a lot less than that. And then you put towing in with it. My guess is it will be around, for our camper specifically, around that 150 to 170 miles of range. And that would be at that 55 miles. And then as you bump up, it will be 10% less if you bump up about 10 miles an hour. And so I do think it's still going to put it there. You will be on the Tesla charging network, so it will be better, but you likely will not be able to skip chargers. Potentially, just depending upon where you're at in the Midwest, you probably won't. But, that it'll also be interesting on the kind of little nerdy side, how this truck will charge. One, how quickly it will charge. It does have the 4680 cells, my understanding, and it is an 800 volt system. So there's a couple things there where the 4680 charging isn't as great as Tesla anticipated, which maybe they're going to work on that. Well, not maybe, they will work on that.
It'll be better in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Full self-driving in 2 weeks. So with that being said, it'll be interesting to watch them work through that and see how better they can make it. And then on the flip side, all the other, besides version 4, I think it is, Tesla superchargers, you won't have the capability of charging 800 volt at 800 volts and get that max speed. So it'll be very interesting to see the charging curve with it, how long it'll take, all those sorts of things. It may be a sort of thing that you're going to want an adapter and charge on public charging, the 800 volt. And, which is fine, because by that point, everybody will be going to the Tesla superchargers and clogging those up. I don't know how this will all work out. Those are just my initial thoughts on the stuff that I like to talk about. What Katie was talking about with the payload and the towing capacity. Yeah, it kind of sucks that it decreased towing capacity. The thing's still going to be a beast and will still be able to tow more than most people will be able to.
More than most people would want to.
Yeah. And then also with the payload, if it actually is 2,500 pounds, I'll be perfectly fine with that, because the R1T is like 1,500 pounds roughly, depending upon if you have the underbody shield or not.
Yeah.
So the towing or the payload, it'll be nice because we can just throw a bunch of stuff back there and have confidence. Well, and I'll be honest too, we max that out in both R1T and definitely in the R1S when we have everything loaded up.
So we also topped out our Ram 2500 that we used to have. So
it's just people want to use those numbers as some sort of barometer of whether the vehicle can do it or not. And what we figured out over time of owning gas and diesel and electric is that those numbers are put out by manufacturers and, for certain reasons. And that's just what they do. And I'm not suggesting that anybody go past those or anything like that. You choose to do what you want to do. But, those numbers are, just interesting, I guess.
I think that it's going to be perfectly capable. And I think that there are some things that make it more capable. I mean, it does have a slightly higher payload capacity, like the 2,500 pounds or whatever they put it
But
as.
it only matters what's on the door.
It does. And that's a lesson that we learned the hard way. Yeah. When we bought a truck, it was a Ram 2500 that we thought, it's a heavy duty truck. It's going to have at least 2,000 pounds of payload, blah, blah, blah.
I said 2,500.
2,500 on
13.
Yeah, 18.
Okay.
18.
Well, it must have said like 3,500. We're using confidence in people now.
But it was just this crazy thing that happened, and we were like, this is ridiculous, because we wanted a fifth wheel at that point in time. And so anyway, we learned the hard way. You got to look at the door. You can't trust anything until you look at the specific door. And so we are also talking about this in the capacity. We have not yet seen the inside door jam of a Cybertruck. So that will also be interesting as well. There is one down in Kansas City. Maybe that's what our road trip needs to be, in the new Tesla. Well, the new Tesla. It's roped off, but we'll just push until we get the questions answered we want. I say that I am like the most not confrontational person in the world. I would be like, oh, okay, and walk away. But anyway, but I do think it is going to be more capable than the Rivians in that way. And obviously the charging network. But I do think that it is going to be annoying that the charging port is at the back of the vehicle, especially when you're towing. That's going to cause, I mean, we went from having to unhook probably a third of the time towing with the Rivian when we went to the Hummer that has the charge port in the back, to having to unhook pretty much every single time we charged when we were towing. So I do think that's going to be a annoyance.
If we didn't, it was, we're lucky we're in the Midwest and there's nobody else at the chargers.
Yeah.
Blocking chargers.
So. Yep. So in other places, we may not have, it may have had to have been 100% of the time that we were having to unplug. Tesla does have some of those pull-in chargers, but a lot of the times when you pull in, if you have a trailer, like your trailer's sticking out into traffic or whatever, so you either have to be okay with blocking traffic or you just have to go ahead and unhook. But that reliable charging network is huge. And I think for some people that is going to be the deciding factor, that you have the Tesla network no matter what. And I know that, it's coming from on all these other manufacturers. But again, how does that go? Is it going to be as smooth as we all want it to be? Like, I think at least for another year or so, a Cybertruck is probably going to have their most reliable charging out of any of the electric vehicles on the market, just because it's Tesla. Immediately, no questions asked, no adapters needed. And you also will still have access to the public charging network. So you have additional chargers to use if you are running into a problem. So I think that is a big advantage for it. Just flat out that it's a Tesla. Mm-hmm. That's an advantage for it.
Yeah. So for the average person that's just buying it, like an average truck owner actually buys a vehicle, it'll be more than enough. I have a couple friends that have one on order. Actually, somebody canceled it because of the price increase. So that I do have anecdotal evidence that people will start canceling their pre-orders because of that, or reservations, I guess. But then another person was perfectly fine with it and is a current TRX owner, Teddy. So, he's still stating that he's going to buy it. And so he travels around, not crazy amount away, but he will have to install a charger at home and do those sorts of things. But yeah, he's an early reservation holder. I hope he gets his soon. That would be cool.
We'll be stealing it then.
So anyways, for the average person, he doesn't really tow. He doesn't really throw much in the back. Like, He does. He puts windows and stuff back there, but that thing will be perfect for it
Yeah.
because he'll have the vault and all that. But the range will be perfectly suffice for him. He'll have reliable charging. It'll be a transition for him a little bit, but I think it'll be a smooth transition for him and fairly easy for that type of person.
Yeah.
Now, somebody that's towing, I do think that, the decreased range will maybe have them look again at some of these other vehicles that are coming out, whether that be the Silverado, because that's going to have a giant battery pack. The GMC Sierra, that one's going to have a giant battery pack.
The Hummer.
The Hummer, yeah, you could go with the crazy super truck. The prices are coming down on those, so.
And it was fun.
Oh, it was a blast. I think that for me, the GMC, the Denali Sierra, I just think that thing's going to be super comfortable, super capable. And it's making me look at that one harder since the release of the Cybertruck in the decreased range. And people are going to talk about, well, they're going to have an added battery pack in the back. Super cool. I can't wait to see it. When are we getting it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
When it's here, great. Maybe that'll be a great option.
And I think it's a little bit of, I just love seeing it all evolve, like as it's all coming down the line. I mean, let's think about this. We're like what, a year and a half out from the release of the first electric trucks. And now we're already getting, a Cybertruck that does have slightly higher payload capacity. We're getting Sierras and things that are going to have these bigger ranges, bigger battery packs. And we're getting a whole bunch of choices really fast. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years down the line to start having all of these different choices. I mean, I think that's super cool. And I think that it is creating where people were when the Cybertruck was first announced, when they said, okay, here, the Cybertruck's coming. It was like, this thing is going to be amazing. Nobody's going to be able to top this. And I mean, even down to the fact of that, the Tesla charging network wasn't open at that point. And there was rumors that eventually one day maybe, but it was not really a reality yet. I think all of those things work against the Cybertruck, because it's just, I mean, is it cool? Yes, it is. Does it change some things? Yes, it does. But I think when you start to get all of these different things coming on the market, people are going to look at that. They're going to look at the different things. They're going to say, oh, well, that's a cool technology. I want to see how that works out. I'm going to get that truck instead. And so then it takes away a little bit of the wow factor of the Cybertruck. And so I think it's just, when it came out, when they first announced it, it was like the holy grail. But now it's like, oh, okay, maybe some people are going to come out with some things that are a little bit a better fit for me, or whatnot. So,
yeah, and that'll be great for people, some options. They just came out with the Max Pack for the dual motor R1T. I think R1S too. Unfortunately, it's not that much more capacity for 10 grand extra in my eyes. I know some people will still pay it, and that's perfectly fine. They can do that and get 20, 30 extra miles. But as far as towing goes and charging and stuff like that, it doesn't seem like it's really going to be that beneficial. I thought it was going to be more of a game changer, but so maybe more options for people.
So, I mean, it sounds to me though like that they changed the battery composition. So again, does that in the end, does that create the ability for them to then make a bigger battery, a bigger capacity battery if they make the size of it bigger, and then again, put more things against the Cybertruck, where if Rivian comes out with this truck that has a massive range on it, are more people going to choose that? Because, I think another piece of the puzzle was that they, to me anyway, when they were advertising it, or talking about it. It was just going to be this big, massive, huge truck. And then we've seen one in person, and it was on a car transporter driving by on the other side of the road. And when I saw it, I think one of the first things that came to my mind was it's not as big as I thought it was going to be. It really was comparable to the other cars that were on the truck with it, and they were not big cars. So, to have this big, massive, huge battery and this big, massive, huge truck, that was potentially going to be enough for me to overcome the look of it, because I am still not convinced that I like the look of it. And so you take those things away from it, and it's just not as exciting to me.
So if we're going to talk about the size of it, then we got to talk about storage, the back seat, the little bit that I've seen online. What are your thoughts? Have you seen any sort of videos online that talk about the back seat or the vault in the bed of the truck and the frunk?
Not enough to make a big.
Okay. So basically what I saw was the frunk is pretty small.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the vault is pretty big, and then you have that downward slope, so you'd be able to put a ton of stuff back there. The back seat is definitely, I don't know if it's comparable to like an F-150, the Lightning, because those back seats are huge.
Yeah.
Like you have so much space. It's definitely bigger than the R1T from what I can tell, because the R1T is small, but that's because of the gear tunnel too. It slides those seats a little bit.
Which I do love.
It's nice. But so as far as storage goes and things like that, once again, it's just going to be what you want in a vehicle. As far as the rear seat goes, our kids are getting bigger and bigger by the day. And so that rear seat would be super nice to have, especially with our dog being back there. Yeah. It's going to be closer to F-150, which everybody was more comfortable with that. The frunk, I do use the frunk a lot when we're traveling for charging stuff. So I'm sure you'll still be able to fit that stuff in there, but it won't be.
It's not the F-150 frunk.
No, the mega frunk is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah.
But there will be plenty of storage in the rear in the vault, and so I think it does have. Yeah, it's just going to be what you want.
Yeah.
So
I think when I saw it, though, I don't think it lacks in storage or anything like that. I do think it's got plenty, but, for me, it was just, it's Tesla sized, right? Like their SUV, if you get into a Model X and you've never been in a Model X before, you're like, how is this even considered an SUV? This is a sedan. This is tiny. I am not going to be comfortable in this thing. And then you get in it and there's so much room and you're like, where did this space even come from? And it's really the way that it is with any Tesla. The Model S, I remember the first time we got in the Model S and Steve convinced me to go to Kansas City with our 3 tiny children and our great big dog in a Model S. And I was like, we are not going to fit in this. Where is the dog going to go? This is ridiculous. And we packed the frunk and we put the dog in the back and the kids, and everything was fine. We fit it all. I was like, where is this magic? Like, do they make this at Hogwarts, or where is this car made? So I don't think that like the inside size is going to be lacking in any way, shape, or form. But in America, where we love our big giant trucks, that is not like I want to get it and park it next to an F-350 and see the size difference, because I think it's going to be underwhelming, like next to an F-350. But that's just,
coming from the person that loves the R1T.
I do love the R1T, and the look and the design and the features, and but I love all I love my R1T. I love driving the F350. That thing was a blast to drive around in. You're like the biggest thing on the road. And I think I wanted that in an electric vehicle. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit disappointed in it. Because I was like, I want to be able to drive around in my big giant pickup truck again and be the biggest thing on the road. And then I saw it and I was like, you were definitely not the biggest thing on the road in the Cybertruck. So maybe that's where because I really, really liked driving the F350. People would always be like, you drive that? And I'm like, yes, I do. And I love it. It was going to be all of it, right? It was going to be the 2.6 second 0 to 60. It was going to be a big giant truck. It was going to have all this range, all this payload capacity. So for me, I think it is a little bit disappointing because it's not delivering in some of the things I was most excited about, other than it is fast. Like you're getting, I don't know if it's plaid level speed, but very close to it in a truck, which is like mind blowing. That's like so cool. But the other things that I was kind of looking forward to with it didn't quite deliver as I anticipated.
Yeah, I think storage would be fine, like you said. I'll agree with that. Tesla they have a magic. It's like Mini Cooper. You get in a Mini Cooper, there's some weird magic that they do. It's like, holy cow, this thing's got a lot of space.
Yeah.
But anyways, it'll have enough space and enough room in there. With that being said, I think that the size of the truck can be a little bit deceiving too because of the air ride. If you get an F350, it doesn't shrink down, so you can get in and out of it. Yeah, it does that. It's an amazing feature. And so when you have a vehicle slammed to the ground so you can get in and out of it, I do think there's a little bit of a look there that makes it look smaller than it really is. One. And then two, I don't think they really needed it to be giant. I agree with you on the miles and the payload. It's underwhelming. And then we haven't even touched on the price is more expensive than what they thought. But to be honest, me personally, I didn't know how they were going to produce something that cheap.
Even before the pandemic, like even from the get-go, he was saying, I don't think they're going to be able to produce it for this. It'll be super cool if they do, but I just don't see how that's going to happen.
Yeah. And now, they're adding all this extra technology. It's got rear steering. It has steer-by-wire, which is going to be so cool on this truck. It's going to make it feel even smaller than what Katie thinks it is. And then also with that, it's right, for me anyways, is super fun to see them transitioning to 48 volt. Like, there's a lot of technology packed in this vehicle. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out, whether it's good or bad. And see if, the 48 volt side of things, if other car companies adopt that, and even how the battery pack is 800 volt, but it can also charge 400 volt. I'm curious if other car companies will adopt that or not. I don't know what they're going to do, but all of that extra technology that is in there just adds to the cost of this vehicle. And it's going to have all the full self-driving stuff. It's going to have all that. That stuff costs so much money. I don't think people realize that, when you transition to something like that, I don't even realize it, that it costs so much more to do stuff.
Well, and we're still in such all of the early phases of all of this stuff, just like with the Rivian, the Max Pack and the additional cost, changing the, composition of the batteries or whatever. Well, there's research and or chemistry, sorry. There's research, there's development, there's all of this stuff that goes into it that you're paying for, especially in the beginning of these new technologies. And so I think it's along those lines of, you're paying to get all of this cool new stuff in your car. And over time, it will hopefully cost less money, but, no, because everything's just skyrocketing, but it's besides the point. But, it is, and you do have to pay that premium for those things. And, if you want the cool stuff, sometimes you just got to pay for it. So,
unfortunately.
Yeah. But, okay, so bottom line, when our number is called, which, guys, we are not high up on the list, so don't be holding your breath thinking all electric family, just hold some strings. Yeah, like when like you're like, oh, they're going to be one of the first ones to get it. Nope, we are not high on the list, and we do not have any pull to be able to change that. So, the when our number gets called years from now,
Yeah,
I don't know.
we'll have to see.
Yeah, what are you ready to pull the trigger on it? Do you still want the Cybertruck?
I mean, if they called us right now, I would, just because, I get it in a couple months. You'd be able to do a lot of stuff, show people what it can and can't do. But, I'm super interested in seeing these non-Tesla, or how do I say it? People that just aren't all in on Tesla. Okay. I'm super interested in seeing what they come up with. Basically, Kyle Connor, and seeing his thoughts on it. Not that he's the end all be all about it, but he's going to give you your regular testing, all that sort of stuff, and give you a good idea what this vehicle is capable of without any sort of slant or anything like that. And then I'll make a decision, because, once these other vehicles transition to, the NAC system, it's going to be hard for me to, say that Tesla is still superior in charging and all that. But once again, I believe Katie's correct. It'll be a year or two before all that's ironed out and working, good
Properly. Yeah.
Could be wrong on that, but I do think if they call us within a month or two, and there still hasn't been a whole lot of stuff out there about it, I would, as long as we would get it by the summer to be able to do stuff. But honestly, I don't think we'll be. I think it'll be sometime this year, not this year, 2024, that we'll get contacted. Maybe we would get it by the end of the year, because I do think with the price increase, you're going to see a lot of people not be able to afford it. And Tesla is requiring $1,000 deposit once your order does come up. So I think that's going to weed out a lot of people with it. So, but it just depends how all this plays out.
Yeah.
But my guess is how it's going to play out. I don't know. I probably won't do it, but I don't.
You don't think you will pull the trigger on it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how long it is. I am still like really super intrigued by it. Just because it does, like, the full self-driving, just some of the Tesla things about it that, I want to see how it performs in a truck manner. So I am intrigued by it, but maybe, if we do get down the line and there's a Sierra or whatever that is out there, I may be like, yep, nope, this is what I'd rather have this. The charging is all figured out. Everything is looking hunky-dory in that realm. I could skip the Cybertruck or whatever. That's not to say like I wouldn't. I mean, I want to test it. I want to take it out. I want to tow with it. I want to do all of those things. But I think it'll, by the time it comes around to us, I think it'll be played out. And so, we'll know what it can do. We'll know all of that stuff. And so I won't be as curious about it anymore at that point. But, I don't know. There are so many cool things about it. But I don't, again, it's just kind of going back to that. I just don't know that it is enough different to make me want to get it versus something else at this point.
Yeah. Once again, if we could get it by this summer, yes, I would get it.
Yeah.
The longer that it takes for us to get it, I do see that decreasing my interest. And that's mostly because of my curiosity about it more than anything.
Yeah.
So that's my thought. And you may just notice that, we may be transitioning into making sure that the vehicle that we get is right for our family too. We went through a lot of vehicles recently. And not to say we won't in the future. It's just that
we got a lot going on right now, and we need to know that the vehicles that we have fit what we are doing with our life. We need to be able to haul kids, dogs, sports equipment, dance stuff, like that all has to come into consideration when we're looking at the vehicles that we have. So,
and we've never been people that have just like spent crazy money on vehicles. Like, well, we've spent a lot of money on vehicles, but not like 2 vehicles,
no.
3 vehicles at one time. That's just not a great recipe for life. And so that's where some of that will come into play too. And so, and it doesn't necessarily benefit us, our life behind the scenes or behind the camera. And honestly, we're noticing we can't give the vehicles as much attention as they require for YouTube. We do our little niche thing and we want to continue to do that, but we can't be Kyle Connor or, Dirty Tesla that's doing all the full self-driving stuff, or, Monroe Live that tears it down. This isn't our main gig, and so we have to, toe that line.
Yeah, and it's what it's boiled down to is that, one of the things that we enjoy the most out of it is like showing what it's really like to own the vehicle, to have the vehicle, to live with it, to take it on trips, to go do things with it. What is that really like? And we have enjoyed that aspect of it. And, I think that's what we want to continue to do, is to just get that piece of it. So what is it like to really live with it, own it, have it for a long period of time? You're relying on that one specific vehicle or those 2 specific vehicles to be the vehicle that you're driving. And so, that'll be a factor that goes into it as well, because at this point, we are going to have to continue to have an SUV in our life in some capacity, just because of our lives and what we need to be able to do. So, if we have another truck that we're particularly in love with, then it may be that we just don't do the Cybertruck because we really enjoy the truck that we already have. So, that is also a factor into it too. But I think, again, that's real life, right? Most people are going to be putting those things into play when they're trying to make a decision about a vehicle. Is, does this vehicle fit into my life or not? So,
we're just trying to figure out the limits of how much we go into these vehicles to provide information for YouTube or social media, and what value we can actually add, because that's important to us on both sides. Like, are we providing the right value? And I think we have with the vehicles that we have had, and we figured out a lot of stuff with the towing aspect that I can probably tell you, or we can probably tell you, how much a vehicle is going to be able to tow something just by some of the specs. Yeah, I know it's not going to be perfect. It may be off like 10% or something like that, but I do truly think we've done enough testing with a variety of these trucks and are, going to be able to tell you what they probably will be able to do. And one of the big things that we figured out with the Hummer EV, which is the reason I'm glad we did that truck, is that for towing, a large battery pack is going to be needed, unless if you're perfectly fine stopping multiple times and charging, for extended period of time, because you're having to use so much of that battery pack. And, reliable charging will help with that when Tesla opens it up, but it still will be nice to just use the meat of the battery and only have to stop for 20 minutes, per 100 miles or whatever that would be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the main thing that I have taken away from all these vehicles that we've owned. And then you have to decide, or we have to decide, what's comfortable for our family, and choosing a vehicle based upon that. Not getting these vehicles and finding out, buying a brand new vehicle that costs $100,000 and finding out, it's 5% more efficient than, we thought, the R1T or something like that while towing. That's really not that beneficial for me.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it all.
Well, and I would say, like, if you're listening to this because you're like, you were underwhelmed by it, you wanted the bigger battery pack on the Cybertruck and all this stuff, and you're like, man, I don't know, I need more range on it, all that kind of stuff. I would encourage you to give it a shot. And even if that means, like, just taking an EV on a road trip or whatever, and taking excuse me, take a standard range Tesla on a road trip or something to show you what it would be like to deal with the towing with the closest you can get, right?
That's our 200,000 mile Tesla.
Yeah, there you go. Because it may not be as bad as you think. So if that's the reason why you're disappointed, that's the only factor, is it doesn't have as much range as you thought it would, go take a standard range something on a road trip. See what it would be like to have to stop in the cold, like worst case scenario stuff we're talking here. Go take it out and go do it, because it may not end up being as bad as you think. And, I guess one of the benefits of when you're towing is you do have the camper with you to cook meals and do all that kind of stuff. But just go see what it's like for yourself. Go see if it's as big of a deal as you think that it is. Because I think there are these people that are really loud out there on the internet that talk about how horrible it is to tow with an electric vehicle, and it's so inconvenient and it's the worst. And is it the best? No, it's not. Like, there's times when you're like, okay, I am ready to be home. Like, this is...
You can see it in the video.
Yeah, you can see it. When we're getting tired, but then, like, it also does help to stop and take that break and get some food in you. And then you're like, okay, we can do this. We've got this, and then you push on down the road. Coming from when we went to Wyoming and we came back to Lincoln in one day, like, that was intense. That was so much. It was such a long day. So if you're doing those kinds of things all the time, it may not be for you. But if you're going a few hundred miles, if you're going a few hundred miles,
like the average person,
like, yeah,
we've done a video on that, where it's like the average person travels less than 125 miles to their vehicle.
Yeah.
So electric vehicle is actually a cheat code.
It is, and it's so just go test it out, go try it, go see what it is actually like for you before you make any decisions on if you think that the range on it is now too small and that's like the only reason why you don't want it. That would be a piece of advice that I would give people, because when we started out, I mean, we thought we were crazy doing it, and then we found out, we're like, oh, this is actually kind of nice to stop and take a break and get out of the car, stretch our legs, find some hidden gems along the way, and knowing that we're only taking maybe one, maybe two longer trips in a year, that was going to be a good solution for us and end up working well. So there's my 2 cents. There's my advice out of the whole thing. And yeah, just go try it. Yeah. But any final thoughts?
No, I think I said a lot of it. I'm super excited about all the technology, see all the testing, all the stuff that comes out with it, that, TFL does, that Kyle Connor does, that any of that stuff. It's going to be regular full self-driving stuff, I'm sure. Maybe there'll be something cool with that, but I'm sure that'll kind of be the regular cool stuff that it can do.
Yeah.
So not so interested in that, but just, the rear steering, making it feel smaller than it is, like all that stuff. You kind of have an idea what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see one in person, first of all, like up close. We saw the one coming down the road, but seeing one close. Yeah. Driving it, I mean, it'll be super fun to drive. I have a good feeling that I know how it'll feel. I think it'll be a little a cross between the Rivian and then also the Hummer, just a bigger vehicle that feels smaller when you're turning it, all that stuff. And then the steer-by-wire, I think, will even make it feel even smaller. And then I'll just have the response of the Rivian, because Rivian, to me, does react closer to a Tesla than like the Hummer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's That's kind of how I think that it'll feel. Be interesting to see what the seats feel like.
Yeah.
Just all that tactical stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your final thoughts.
I am still excited for it. I still want to see it. I still want to drive it. I still want to tow with it. But I just don't know that I'm excited enough to say that I would push you to get one if, the time came or whatever. I think I would be a little bit indifferent, especially if it's been, a little while. But otherwise, I still am excited. I definitely still want to see one in person and get my hands on it and look at it and, all that stuff. But just like a little underwhelmed by it after it came out. And, maybe it's just my love affair I have with Rivian right now. But I just don't see any reason why I would want to switch and buy a whole nother new car off of what I've seen so far. So
yeah, I think there's two things to that. You're attached to the R1S, the SUV side of stuff. So and then you have always really enjoyed the Rivian, which the Rivian is an awesome vehicle. If they came out the same exact time, the R1T, we had to choose in between the R1T and the Tesla, and we didn't know too much about either one. Which one would you have picked?
The Rivian.
I would have picked the Cybertruck. So.
Yeah, that's it. I like the adventure aspect of it. I like how adventures forever. Like I love it. It's beautiful.
You like the branding?
I like the branding. I buy into the branding. I buy into the look of it.
Cultness.
Tesla has more of a cult than Rivian.
Yeah,
Come on.
I don't buy it. Me personally, I don't feel like I buy into that. The bias of the
Probably not. But
I'm saying I won't get one at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I don't see how that's
no.
into that.
Well, I think you say it like it is the cultness. Like I just like the look of the Rivian. I like the style of it. I feel like it fits my style.
You said adventure.
Well, yeah, and it's styled for adventure, but it's beautiful, and it's I don't know. I just
she likes the crossbars on top, man. I think it looks so dorky.
He's so mad that I put the crossbars on the R1S.
Dorky.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's cute.
Yeah, which whatever. I don't really. I think it's a bit dorky, but whatever floats your boat.
I wanted a Jeep my whole life, and I never got it. And then I got the Rivian, and now I'm in love with it. So,
Jeep have crossbars on it?
No, but it's cute. I like it. It's cute. Tell us what you prefer, without the crossbars or with the crossbars. And with the crossbars, better win. Anyway.
Yeah, more of a utility person, so comfort and utility.
But
there's no comfort or utility with that.
If you guys enjoyed this podcast, be sure to share it with somebody you think would enjoy it as well. And be sure to follow us. Like, go on your platform that you use to do podcasts and go on and follow us on there. All of that helps us. Leave us a comment on those platforms just to get some engagement up on the platforms for the podcast. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. So, but yeah, we'll see you guys on the next episode.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. Find all of our show notes at allelectricfamily.com/allelectricconversations. Be sure to connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at All Electric Family. Find us on Twitter as All Electric Fam. You can find our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to share it and hit that subscribe button. Leave a review and help inspire others to hit the road. Until next time, stay charged.